Good, Sebastian.
Yeah, you're good to go.
Thanks, Sebastian. And thank you for everybody coming out tonight, and thank you for everybody joining us virtually. My name is Ryan Lemme, and I'm going to be the moderator today. I'm a consultant for Trinet. And today we're going to be talking about scaling your company and retaining your top talent and attracting them. I'm excited to hear tonight's panelists on this very timely subject. And before we get started, I do want to introduce you to our panelists. So I'm going to introduce first Josh McAfee over here, three-time founder, Wall Street and USA Today bestselling author, current co-founder of Humans Doing. Welcome.
Thanks.
Trey Bardwell, managing director of Bardwell Insurance. Trey has over 14 years in the insurance business and currently supports over 100 plus companies and clients today. Elyse Blitzer, she's a senior consultant with Trinet, two-time President's Club winner with us, and specializes in the HR support and infrastructure of growing technology teams. Josh, let's get started with you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So we're in the middle of a work revolution requiring companies to rethink the way they recruit. Could you discuss some of the common challenges small businesses face when it comes to recruiting?
Sure. The first thing that comes to mind is a lot of companies, when they start up, they have a hard time with identifying, understanding how to map their true business needs through to a job description, then to the hiring. And a lot of times they just get into their head a little too much around that and end up overthinking things a lot, and then not spending enough time on the process of really fully understanding their business need versus saying, I need a Java developer or I need a salesperson. And when they don't think it all the way through, a lot of times they don't set themselves up for success, you know, with the person in the position, but also in terms of interviewing for them as well. So, you know, making sure they understand what a qualified person is going to need and be doing specific to their business, and then setting themselves up with the things that those people will need to do their jobs effectively, and then being able to communicate well with them through it.
So follow up to that is, can you talk to us a little bit more about job descriptions and what you're seeing? And what are some of the best practices that maybe an employer should be considering?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of companies still, when they get bigger, they standardize their job descriptions, which really puts their hiring managers as well as HR, as well as the candidates at kind of a disadvantage. Because then you kind of end up with a groupthink situation going on where everybody thinks it's the job description, so they stop talking about what the business really needs. And what excites people when they're interviewing is really what the business needs. What are they going to be doing? Why is this exciting? Why is this compelling? How is it going to help them grow? So your job description, if you do it right, should be a living document. It should be something that grows and changes as your business needs ebb and flow and grow also. And what we find is the companies that do a really good job of describing that, and also focusing not on what for the job description, not just on what they need for the business, that's got to be in there, but also looking at it from a candidate's perspective, so that the candidates read that and they see the benefit, they understand what they'll be doing, why it's valuable, how it's going to help them grow. When you can get somebody excited about the role, and it's worded and phrased in a way that they get excited about it versus, you know, you getting excited about what it's going to do for your business, it really helps them engage and ask better questions, and it helps you qualify them better, because you're spending less time trying to figure, or they're spending less time trying to figure out really what the job is, and more time trying to figure out how they're going to fit in, and figuring out if the culture and the collaboration and all this stuff is going to work well for them, and you'll be able to do the same thing.
I love thank you for explaining the standardized job descriptions and really how that impacts candidates being able to ask better questions on both the employer side. Trey, I want to kind of come over to your side of the house now. When you consider job descriptions, I imagine most, maybe not all, but most candidates also consider the benefit package as one of those things that they're looking for. Could you describe or discuss the right insurance package making small businesses attractive today?
Yes. I will say I'm pretty attention to detail. I'm just OCD, so that's not a compliment on myself. It's not helpable. I'm trying to help that. But I would say that kind of helps me. And I think, like, if you're ever choosing an insurance broker, I think finding someone that's gonna take the time to look at, like, really look at your group and really analyze, like, what should be like their search results. So if I'm shopping the market for health insurance, I'm looking at like the entire market. And then I'm taking that group into real consideration on what I'm picking. And then I'm showing them the whole market, but then I'm explaining, hey, here's what I picked on your group for these reasons, such as obviously, I mean, nowadays I go to companies, unfortunately, and this wasn't my recommendation. A lot of times I'm coming behind. But you're offering a plan to people that like it would literally cost them their whole paycheck. Like they're not just complaining about the insurance, like it's costing me my whole paycheck when it's really not. It's like actually costing them their paycheck. So in my question, I'm like, well, why was this ever even put in here? Like you're offering something they can't afford. So that's not going to leave a good taste. If I'm going to, going to see about working somewhere and I look at my paycheck and I look at what the benefits are going to cost and it's like there's no paycheck anymore, like I'm probably not going to go to work there, right? So I think really making sure what you're offering fits people's budgets, but then make sure they know what they're getting. One common thing I see with insurance, 99% of the time, not to sound negative, but it's they weren't explained it well, right? So I see often where people thought this, but not this. So I think again, if you're working with any advisor, financial advisor, insurance advisor, you go to the car lot. I mean, who you're talking to and making the recommendation can change everything. So I think as long as you're talking to someone that treats your dollars like they're their dollars, I think that's always someone I try to partner with. So
Treat your dollars like my dollars.
that's not a pitch. I tell people, I'm like, look, I'm cheap and this is a good thing for you. We'll go find, I can show you the platinum plan, but I'm going to really, again, that's where the analyzing goes in. I'm going to, and there are other brokers, not just me, but they'll go the extra step. Sometimes the extra step can save a chunk of money on benefits.
Staying with the benefits side of the house, what's working in terms of funding strategies? In our roles, we see 100%, we see 50%. What really works for these small businesses?
I mean, really for the small businesses, obviously, I mean, it's great if you can pay 100%. I mean, that's a, hey, we love you, we want to keep you employed. But the reality is, I think right now for a lot of industries, a lot of small business, money's not just, you're not looking for extra places to spend money right now, especially on insurance. But I think if you're a small business and you can offer insurance, that's a win. I mean, there's a lot of small businesses that don't offer benefits. So I think if you're a small business that can afford to offer insurance and just, you're supposed to contribute the 50% at least for the employee only. I still think that's a win. I mean, that's a good thing. The other aspect there is if you're able to contribute a little bit more, participation's a big thing with health insurance. So you're always wanting to constantly boost participation. And I think Trinet does a great job because of all their other stuff. And I'm not just saying that because we're at the Trinet event, but I think they're a really sharp, good PEO that helps with that. But yeah, I think it's, putting in the right plans that'll boost participation. And then sometimes I have seen small businesses where they need to kick up that 50% to 70% to maybe help, participation. So I think that's all things that can be done in like the planning meeting, right? And then, nowadays, a lot of these insurance companies, and I don't know what everyone in the room knows or don't know, so I may not be telling you anything. If not, I apologize. But, these insurance companies will do, admin credits. So I have a couple groups I'm doing right now, 6/1, 7/1 effective dates. I had one this morning. Technology? No. They're going to have like 10 people sign up. They're going to get back a $525 admin credit per employee on their second month invoice, right? So that's something like when I'm analyzing, it's like, oh, well, UHC's $5 cheaper, but they don't do an admin credit. So not knowing that business just left, 5-10 grand in their, not in their pocket. So admin credits are a big thing nowadays. Mm-hmm.
Elyse, anything else you're saying from your side of the house on benefit packages and funding?
Yeah, Trey touched on it, but the total package, so it's not just salary anymore. People aren't going to switch from one company to another for just $10,000 more. They want the full package, especially if you're looking for tenured people that have a family. They're going to want health insurance, dental, vision, at least offering it, even if you're not able to contribute 100%. 50%, or even just offering some of these bigger benefits and having access to them is huge. You're not going to see people switch without that total package anymore. 401k, ancillary benefits, like silly things like pet insurance we joke about, but it's one of the number one asked for benefits these days. They want to know about, we had one cybersecurity insurance, all these different unique ones to be able to offer the full package is really what employees are looking for these days.
It reminds me, we offline, we were talking about the attraction and retaining of top talent today, and how employers were able to contribute 100% 4 or 5 years ago pretty regularly, and today that's not it. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so our talk track now, a lot of clients, when looking at healthcare, you want to offer really competitive plans and a wide range of plans like Trey talked about, because in olden days, a lot of companies weren't able to contribute 100% because it wasn't as expensive. And now, some companies just weren't able to out of pocket, and now more budget conscious times you're seeing they're contributing 50% or 70%. So then if the employee is having to pay out of their paycheck for these plans, they at least want plans that are beneficial to them. They don't want some crappy plan that's a high deductible that will take their whole paycheck. So if it's going to be on their dime, what they're really looking for is a wide array of plans, everything from the highest deductible all the way to a $0 deductible, all different types of plans, so they can really find one that fits their lifestyle. So now more than ever, when it is coming at such a high cost for employers, but also employees, if they're having to put so much money towards it, they really want good plans and the plan choice, having a wide array so that they don't feel like they're pigeonholed just to one plan that the employer picked for them.
Of that.
Brian, can I add one quick thing?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I was nervous to talk. I don't know. When I present benefits, I'm good, but panel, I'm like, whoa, that's a big deal. No, I'm excited to be here. One other thing I was thinking about too is, perception is a huge thing, right? Like you can offer a really good health insurance, but well, say really good, it doesn't feel like it nowadays, but you can offer the cream of the crop. But if people don't understand it, it's like you have to make sure they can see the value. So what I'm getting at is, like if you're a small business owner and you could pay the 50% or you could pay the 70% on the health insurance, I might be thinking, well, you could do that, or you just pay the 50%, take half of that extra and pay for everybody's short-term disability, long-term disability, and a $25,000 life insurance policy. Because if I'm sitting down to be hired and I'm like, hey, I pay 70% of your health insurance versus, hey, I pay 50% of your health insurance, I pay 100% of your short-term disability, 100% of your long-term disability, and I pay $25,000 life insurance, like what deal would you take? And the better sounding deal, not to sound shady, but might have costed you less money most likely. So, because I do long-term for my staff, and I want to say short-term disability, there's 5 of us. I mean, it's between 40 and 50 bucks a month. So, I mean, we're talking very inexpensive stuff, but if you have one of your people go down and they can't work and everyone else is looking at them like they're just kind of crap out of luck, they're like, oh. So I think spending that extra, can really help people, but also I think it makes a better proposal for an employee.
Love that. Agreed. Josh, we're going to shift gears here. We've talked a little bit about the challenges. We've talked benefits. I want to talk through infrastructure. What infrastructure is really needed from a recruiting standpoint to go after the top talent?
Depends on where you're at as an organization. And I actually love talking with this thing because there's typically so much low hanging fruit that companies can do better to, or optimize to attract and keep great people. And I look at those two holistically. I look at recruiting and retention. There's a significant impact that kind of helps you. Recruiting well helps retention. Doing things that retain people helps you attract good people. But from an infrastructure perspective, if you're younger or a smaller company, or in a growth mode, having something in place that helps you keep track of people and keep in touch with them. Just because you don't hire them today, it doesn't mean that you might not want to hire them next week, or that you don't want to put them on a newsletter and share other positions that are open that they can share among their colleagues and their friends. Having good documentation on that, so that from an HR perspective, when they're coming on board, they have a really good onboarding experience. I'm shocked at how many times we've seen companies that have done and hired the unicorn. They found the person, sweet Jesus, hallelujah. They find them and their onboarding experience is miserable and they lose them. So making sure that you're buttoned up from that perspective is really important as well. Treating your candidate pool and the people that you're engaging, much like you would a sales process. There's recruiting specific CRMs that are great for companies as they're growing, for working with partners if they're working for external recruiters as well, that help you stay very, very organized and also can help make sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed long term if you've got any DEI type initiatives also. And it allows you to engage them on surveys. We find that silly little things like sending people surveys that are candidates can reel people in and get them even more excited. Like, wow, they really do care about people. And then there's silly little things that you can do that really, really help engage a community more, and engage people individually and make them feel special. If you're a startup and you feel like you're competing with the Googles and the Microsofts and a lot of companies for top talent, well, you are. But reality is, Google and Microsoft, they're between the two of them may hire 2% of the market. So people may be out there thinking they're all going to go get Google and get Google dollars, and Google dollars aren't what people think they are. And it's kind of like urban legend, Google's going to pay me 400,000. You only want to pay me 50. Well, Google's not really going to pay somebody 400,000. But if you do little things that are more appealing and attractive, you engage more people. An example that we like to use is we'll get videos from the CEO, from the head of development, from team members, and we'll use them in outreach. So when somebody's getting an email from us for one of our clients, it says, hey, I'm the CEO of XYZ company, we're growing, we're hiring this position. This is why it's really valuable to us. But more importantly, this is why it's really valuable to you and why we think this would be a great opportunity for you. We'd love to have a conversation with you. What we find is that the engagement when we have little things like videos or personal messages are huge. We find that when people feel encouraged, equipped, and enabled and are excited about coming in and interviewing, they do a lot better than when they're intimidated, like, oh my God, I'm interviewing with this guy. He's got a PhD. He started for a company. He's a quadrillionaire. If they've got that in their head, they interview poorly. But if they get a little video from somebody in the company saying, hey, heard you're interviewing, we were talking about you, we're really excited to see how it's going to go, love your background, and we're really looking forward to meeting you. They walk in the door, feeling 9 feet tall and bulletproof, not from an ego perspective, but like, wow, I'm excited to meet these people. They're excited about me. And the old adage is nobody cares what you know until they know that you care. And when people are engaged in the front end and they feel like you care, man, they'll bust through walls for you. And they want to do well versus the ones coming in that are either timid or afraid or confrontational because, interviewing sucks.
It's very interesting, right? I think the old saying is what people leave leaders, not companies. And you're kind of saying people will join companies based on the leader there. So kind of staying on that trend, does employer branding play that significant of a role? And I think of employer branding as leadership branding.
So let's define employer branding. Employer branding is the way the market or candidates as a whole or a community see your brand, but more importantly is how an individual person experiences or sees your brand. So employer branding can be used multiple ways. It can be used to attract the people that you want to attract, but it can also be used to repel the people you want to repel. You can use it as a qualifier right on the front end to make sure that that it attracts the right people. So I've got a friend, he's got an organization out there, it's overseas, but he uses GSD consulting. And officially it's called Get Sales Done, but reality is Get SHIT Done. And that's cheeky, but it attracts the people that are going to be that like that, and it detracts the people like they're more of a not loosey-goosey, they're very refined in their process, but the feel is very engaging versus methodical, numbers driven. And so you can use that employer branding in a lot of different ways. So the answer is yes, it's really, really important. But the employer branding from a community perspective that's the low-hanging fruit. How you engage people through the process. If you do what you say you're going to do in a timely fashion, if you give them feedback, even if they're not going to get the job, and telling them things that help them grow personally, that helps them stay engaged with your brand long-term and speak well of it. Versus ones that come in, they interview, they feel like they're just a number, they go out, they tell all their friends, this place sucks. That has a huge impact. For every 10 people you leave a good impact, that'll have the same impact as having a negative impact from one person. It's amazing how much damage one person can have. And it's amazing how few people that have a great experience will really talk to it in their community unless you give them opportunities and reasons to.
Like a restaurant,
Mhm.
everyone leaves bad reviews, very good reviews.
Yep, and you find companies that give, like I was in a shop the other day and they said, hey, we'll give you $5 off if you leave a review. And so what did I do? Oh, the dang review. I'm a member of the Cheap Bastards Club. So, I mean, $5 is $5. Took me 20 seconds to say, this is awesome,
Yeah, I think that my experience with net promoter scores, or exactly what you're talking about, it's extremely significant because so many times that negative comes in and most companies and leaders do not realize how many positive surveys you need to replace that one negative and the lasting impact that has.
I reference it in my book as well, is think of it like an Indiana Jones movie, but you're only 2/3 of the way through, you're writing the story. So, when you're interviewing people and you're doing that, you're 2/3 of the way through an Indiana Jones movie and somebody hits pause button. How do you feel? You want to know what's next. You want to still be on the journey. You want to stay engaged. If you walk into someplace and it just feels like a lecture or a qualification, they're checking boxes, they're not going to want to be engaged. And the ones that want to stay engaged with you long term and the things you can do culturally that they're not heavy lifts, that get people engaged and they want to still do that. Hey, we're in the middle of the step cycle. It's really, really exciting. This is what it's going to do. This is what our product team thinks it's going to enable. And here's what our team is learning and the challenges they're doing. Like, this is an awesome battle we're in. They'll come back 3 weeks later in the interview process and they may get the job, they may not, but you'll find they'll want to know what's going on. They want to stay engaged. They want to share it with their friends.
Let me jump in real quick. Something else that you said on the prep call that I thought was really good before we move off of infrastructure was talking about using current employees, the ones that are already bought in and live and breathe your culture, and having them involved in the recruiting process is great for those current employees and gives the potential employees a good feel too.
My grandpa used to say this as well. No one will listen to a darn thing about what you say about yourself, but they'll always listen to what somebody else says about you. So having a peer to that position or somebody they're going to be working with talk about it and they're excited about it, tenfold the difference in terms of what they're going to feel like the employer brand is. Like, wow, not only are they saying it, but like the people on the team are actually saying this as well. That's huge. Great point.
Elyse, we're actually going to stay with infrastructure here. And so from an HR perspective, can you tell us a little bit about the vendor options our small companies have?
Yeah. So from an infrastructure point of view, there's 3 main options. So we have a lot of them on the panel today. So I'll let Trey kind of touch to his point and I'll touch on the PEO point. But to start with, you can bring somebody in-house. So when we're talking about benefits, payroll, HR, compliance, if you're at that point where you can have one person that's dedicated to it, or even eventually a whole team, you see in companies that are 100, 150 getting up there, they have a couple people dedicated to the HR team. You can have what we call a multi-vendor. So there's a couple different vendors that are helping you with all those different areas. So a benefits advisor would be one area, a payroll provider would be a separate, and kind of have a couple different, and there are certainly benefits to that as well. And then the third would be having a PEO like Trinet that does everything for you. So a full service solution. Again, there's benefits and situations to all 3. It's not one size fits all. But those are kind of the 3 main decisions as you're growing your infrastructure, beginning to hire, look for funding. Those are the 3 main that we see companies kind of go through. And I know Trey can definitely talk about when it's beneficial to use a broker, when it's beneficial to look at a PEO, or if you want to talk to some of that.
Yeah. Gosh, it's so case by case. Like, I mean, I'm trying to think of a very general
Like
answer.
size wise though, when is it usually beneficial?
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of companies, like, what would you say? Like, I don't know, the 2 to 50, 2 to 100 PEOs can make really good sense.
Yeah.
And then, like
yeah.
you said, once you get to a certain size where you have like a whole HR team, obviously that can change things.
Right.
Yeah, I just think it's all about being like, I consider a good consumer someone that like knows what's out there. So I think it's always good for any company to like, hey, look at a PEO, see what they do. If you like that, roll with it, right? If there's something you don't like, figure out like, was there some things the PO can do? And then maybe some of the things you don't like, you outsource, so you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. So I think it's really just looking at your options. So I don't know who all in the room is business owners or not, but if you are a business owner, I would definitely look at a PEO, just get the facts. I'd look, get the facts on each thing. And I think if you're dealing with the right people, I think the answer will kind of, or your situation is going to point to one way being the better option. Because you can kind of take opinion out of most things in life to some degree. I mean, like with insurance, I just spreadsheet everything. So I'm not going to sit here and like, not to sound rude, but I'm not going to try to convince you that this is a better option. It's like, you can spreadsheet it, right? As long as you're putting real numbers and apples to apples. So I feel like if you take a company and you say, this is what they have going on, and there's these solutions, one's going to have to fit it better than the other if we're looking at it from an analytical point of view, which I think in business, always try to take the emotion out, but if you do, I think that's.
And it depends what's important to and what's the priority. Is it cost? Then maybe Trey has some great options that are lower cost, but you have to manage them a little bit more versus if you use Trinet, we're a little bit more full service on the admin side where you can kind of wipe your hands clean. Is it really just handing everything off so you can focus on your next round of funding or your business or working with Josh to hire 10 more people? It just depends what the priorities are too of what's going to be the best solution in this stage of your business.
I just gotta say one thing. I deal with a lot of founders as they grow in their companies, and they typically are very, very focused on the dollars of the options. And the benefit to their employees. But the thing that they're not taking into account a lot of time is the time and the hassle factor as well. There's an opportunity cost to growing a business, and there's an opportunity cost of what you're spending your time in. So I've talked to people and, where they're at from a funding perspective, they can afford X, it's better to use this option, or where they're funded, Y, it's better to outsource the whole thing because that extra bit of time that they get back, it may only be 4 hours a week, but what they can do with that extra 4 hours a week and the impact it has to their business or their family is huge and well in excess of the costs sometimes. So just there's a balance point for that. But I try to tell people not to just think about the dollars and the benefit, but actually the time and the hassles as well.
Well, it's kind of like what business owners tell their clients as well. Do you want just the cheapest option? Like most of the time, you guys are also selling the value. It's a premium product. You have the best product out there, not just trying to tell your clients to look at just the lowest cost option too, which is funny because that's what we say as well.
Yeah, I'll stay with you, Josh. Speaking of that, is there any other budget friendly best practices that you have to share?
Yeah, just use us. We'll have 25% discount on our inflated 50% over retail price. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, for startups, it's a lot of outreach. If you're early on and you've got the time, say you're looking for a technical co-founder or your first developer or somebody to help with product. One, think about things. Do you really need somebody full time? Because finding people that'll want to do a side hustle and have the bandwidth for it, it's a great cost option saving. Finding people in secondary or tertiary markets, that aren't Atlanta, that aren't. Well, if you're in California, Atlanta's a great deal, but finding ones that are in Alabama, we find great people in these secondary markets. We find a ton of them that are living in beach towns that's the lifestyle they want, and they'll take a 30-40% discount to do it, and they're happy to talk with you. So figuring out what your business need is and then mapping it to whether you need a full-time or a fractional resource can be a great add. If it's truly project-based, Fiverr, freelancer, there's all kinds of really neat things out there. We're getting a lot of people in the tech space that are asking if the clients are leveraging any of the AI things because they want to do more. They want to continue to grow. That can be a great add. And then in terms of outreach, LinkedIn's a great tool. so is Facebook, so is Twitter, leveraging your network and just sending out a nice note saying, hey, this is who I am. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Not necessarily to hire them. I just love to get your advice. We're trying to hire for a position just like yours. I'd love to learn and understand, what's valuable to you with your company, why you're there, what will be really valuable with what we're doing. You'll be shocked how many people are happy to spend 15, 20 minutes to help you hone in on what's going to work for your business. And you say, thank you very much. Oh, by the way, hey, I got 2 friends that love that job.
Yeah.
So it's having good communications and then just realizing it's also a numbers game. So if you reach out to 3 people, you get 3 people results. If you reach out to 103 people, you get 103 people results.
I think that's, in working with clients and prospects all the time, what you've mentioned in trying to go out west for some software talent, but it could be found here, maybe just right across the border, is very important. Because some of those salaries are 4 times what we're doing here. And to be able to find really quality talent just across the border or within our own city is very important for these small companies.
I want to share one thing that's a gotcha. When companies do that, a lot of times they'll find someone who is a great developer in a certain market, and the labor laws in those markets may be very different than the labor laws in the ones that you're currently in. This is where having someone like Trinet to help guide you is really, really important, because they'll raise their hand and say, hey, I know you want to hire the person that's over here, but this is what it's going to do to your insurance premium. This is what's going to do to your liability. Here's your liability as an employer, and this may not be cost justified based on where you're at with your business. So having good partners that can help you navigate the landmine fields is really important from an employment perspective. Same thing on the insurance side.
Elyse, would you have anything to add?
Josh said most of it, but you're right. As soon as you hire somebody in a new state, then you have to deal with all of that, this unemployment and registering with the states and dealing with benefits in those states. And does it apply to where they live now? There's, different carriers are heavy in different regions. So it adds a whole nother layer to it. So you need to make sure when you're hiring in secondary markets, it does a lot more than just hire them and they're onboarded for your business. So just making sure that you either are knowledgeable about that or have a partner that is.
Yeah, love that. And then, I think about keeping budget friendly. I'm gonna come over to you, Trey. You mentioned earlier an innovative trend in health insurance, but what else is out there for companies to consider to try to be budget friendly and be innovative?
So innovative, I would say, innovations, really like y'all's platform, it's all connected. So then the HR is not sitting there doing as much. So really technology from that perspective, is innovation now. As far as like innovative trends, if you have, employees nationwide, I don't really have any like groundbreaking stuff to share, but just utilizing technology that's out there, whether it's on Trinet. I know we partner on a couple cases, and I have, me and a lot of other brokers. There's technology aspects that you can integrate. That's another thing I've looked for in a broker. If you're a small business, not to sound negative, but a lot of brokers, technology isn't free. So they may only do that for, hey, my clients that are 25 and up or 50 and up. So not to toot my own horn, because there's others probably like me, but like I build technology for every single client if they have 3 employees, because I just feel like, hey, it doesn't take us too long. And so I would just find brokers that are willing to use technology, not at your cost, and find technologies that can help.
What about innovation? Sorry.
No,
I have a question for Trey. And creative things like to add to the package. Like we named a couple of cybersecurity, pet insurance. Is there anything else that people are looking for that small businesses can add to their bundle to be a little bit different?
Like I do a ton of the supplemental stuff, accident, cancer, if you get sick. A lot of people have heard about those, but at the end of the day, you can offer like a good health insurance plan, but even a really good plan has $5,000-$6,000 out-of-pocket max. So if somebody has a heart attack, stroke, cancer, ends up in the hospital, I hate to say it, but chances are you're probably going to hit that out-of-pocket max, not just your deductible. So if you have a $2,500 deductible, but your out-of-pocket max is $6,550, something bad happens, you're out of pocket to $6,550. So if you have an employee that's making X amount of dollars per hour, it's great that they have this good health insurance. It's great that you pay 100% of it, But, now they're, maybe living more so paycheck to paycheck and they've got to come up with 6550. The whole like you paid 100% thing isn't really going to matter. I mean, I hate to say it, money talks, and when you have $6,500 that you don't have, whatever, that speaks. So, like I later on, and I was actually telling someone before the meeting, I was like, I swear this is not a sales pitch. We just got into the conversation that led to it. But yeah, there's like an accident plan. It's, to give you an idea, $5 a week. And that's per employee, and it will pay you money like in the event of an accident. So if you go to urgent care, it kicks you $150. So if you have an employee that goes to their urgent care, they pay their $50 copay or 70 or 100. This plan will kick back money directly to that person in cash. So I think doing stuff like that, those plans don't even cost a company anything to offer. So when I go to companies and we're setting up, the health insurance, the dental vision, and then we layer on an accident plan and sickness plan, and a lot of employees take those, now they're in a situation where the employees are happy, but then when they go to use the benefit, they're not sitting here paying all these deductibles and co-pays, and it literally costs them, the company, nothing to offer it.
I gotta add something here, because there is one thing, innovation, that I'm gonna brag on him about that I know he's good at. So this is gonna sound absolutely shocking, but you would be totally surprised at how many vendors will not pick up the phone and actually talk to someone. So I hate saying it's innovative to actually call people and engage with them and understand what they need and build things that work out that way. But I know a lot of companies out there that they're offering services, insurance is a prime example, and you can't get someone on the phone. So
It's funny that you said innovation was technology, and then
no,
now innovation is considered just having a human to talk to. Crazy. That's not innovative, but it's true.
Well, I mean, my biggest, the only reason I'm sitting here today and like good at what I do is really nothing to do with anything, but we're around when people need it. That's like, this is really, what's the problem with insurance? Like, yeah, the cost, but then it's like that one time you had to use it, it was a nightmare. So I think, again, finding a broker, which this is difficult in my opinion as a consumer, but finding someone that can answer the phone after the money's been made, in my opinion, just to be very blunt, can be challenging in anything, and insurance is no different. So yeah, with us, and again, there's others like me, but like we want to help people. We're here, we're not just a churn and burn thing. So I think, but I would say if you're ever interviewing a broker, I would figure out, like, what is your process on claims? To use a system? Because, I again, not to be negative, but I feel like a lot of people are like, oh yeah, we do that. But they don't really have like a true system. It's more, they're putting out fires and everything. So I would find a broker that does have like a claim, like I have a claims girl in-house, Sierra, she's great. All she does is claims. So if somebody calls, like they're getting that person. So I would just make sure if you have a broker that has like, hey, yeah, if you have a claim issue or even just a claim question, whatever, that would be this person in our office. That's good. If you're like, well, just give me a call if something happens, you could be in the boat where you're not in that innovative new trend of answering the phone. My wife, sometimes she's like, who's calling you right now? I'm like, I told him to call me anytime. It's fine. No, but yeah, I think customer service will never, I don't think technology, well, I don't know with artificial intelligence, but that's another story. But I don't think technology will ever replace like good customer service from another human that is like wanting to help you.
There's no way that everybody in this room and founders in general can know all of this about insurance. Like, we have been doing this 3 years, working with HR and benefits with Trinet, and it still is extremely complex. So how are founders and business owners supposed to know what plan they should offer? What does this mean? Will my employees have to pay $10,000 out of pocket? That's why Trey is a great resource and a good benefits advisor, and using, instead of trying to do everything yourself or in-house, like using the partners no matter what the subject is. Like, that's what TiE is all about, using the community, using the resources that you have in front of you, because you can't be experts in all of these different areas. You're an expert at your business. That's why you got into it, and focusing on that.
Great. And I think another amazing thing TiE does is bring a lot of diversity to the room, right? And so I want to come over to Josh on diversities specifically. And so today's talent pool takes corporate values very, very seriously, and obviously DEI is extremely important. I want to know, like, how do you approach diversity and inclusivity in your recruiting?
Go ahead and jump on that landmine. So the inclusivity piece is so valuable. Donald Knight, the Chief People Officer for Greenhouse, he uses the word belonging in every conversation he has, and it's such a beautiful word. If you can engage people right from the start and help them understand and know that they belong or that they feel welcomed, it's a huge attraction. But there's heavy lift. What disappoints me about my industry, and we're not squeaky clean on this either, is that there's a lot of companies out there that they're doing diversity just for the sake of diversity, but they fail in making sure those people have the opportunity, the tools, the knowledge, the wisdom, and just the encouragement to be successful once they're in. It doesn't matter what background. There's going to be somebody that struggles with that, and companies that don't intentionally invest in that inclusivity, the belonging piece, miss out on a huge opportunity. So they can have all the diversity initiatives they want, but they don't keep the people. So there's a lot of people from different backgrounds, and I'll brag on one of our employees, Haley Williams, who's putting together a series with Georgia State and the FinTech Academy. So they're going in and we're training, where she and several of our colleagues are going in, and they're going to be training people that are rising seniors and just out into the workforce that are from just frankly the bad zip codes that don't get the opportunities to understand, hey, here's how you dress professionally, here's how you interact, here's how you talk about your value just versus just what you want when you get into an interview. Here's how you get them excited about you. Here's how you actually land the interview. Here's the things to do when you walk in the door. And she's got a great group of companies that are really excited about engaging on that, because just their internal teams kind of miss the mark in some ways of doing that. So the best way to tackle it is to, the diversity, like here in Atlanta, really kind of takes care of itself because we're a very, very diverse environment. I look across this room and I love seeing every flavor of the rainbow. We're a bag of Skittles. And I'm so excited about that. But the inclusivity, the belonging, the things that we can do to really engage and help people rise up to what they're capable of becoming, that's where it gets exciting, where I think a lot of HR organizations could really, really add value, but they're just not equipped to do it.
And Elyse, I'll piggyback a little bit on that, because for HR departments, and there's some risk, right? And I think that a lot of companies are a little concerned about that. How does someone like Trinet and PO protect companies from a risk perspective?
Well, compliance, workers' comp, EPLI claims, making sure that you as an employer are covered on all of that. And then training on the front end, so sexual harassment training, signing off on a company handbook. It's stuff that gets overlooked because it's not the most exciting stuff. It's not a secret, but making sure that you have that infrastructure in place, going back to the start of the conversation, kind of round circle. It's really important to have those processes in place, that infrastructure, so that you have a standard process bringing employees on and none of that is missed. And then there's companies I know now, we don't partner with them. It's not a plug. I just know they're a great company. Inclusive is one of them. I think education.
She's amazing.
Yeah. It's
Noelle's amazing.
a big piece of what you were saying, like education and how to go about it and have those conversations. I know that they do a great job of that. So even looking in the local marketplace, companies are, making waves and are really successful of the DE&I in those conversations.
Well, and what's great about what Inclusive does is they're focused not on predictive and prescriptive, but also the performative. So they can measure and show you the difference in performance in your team based on it, which is huge. I mean, diversity adds value. I mean, if you got 20 people that all say the same thing and look at things from the same angle, you're looking at this way. You're missing every other perspective looking at that object. And Noelle Company Inclusive, huge plug, is fantastic.
Yeah, very big.
And I got another one. I can't tell you the number of times I've seen people get sued in organizations by employees that they got through the door, they weren't the greatest apples, and they didn't have a handbook, they didn't have these policies in place, and they're basically, they're not on the right side of it. They're going to lose.
That's something that Trinet helps with too. So for those that don't know, it's not just benefits, payroll, workers' comp, EPLI, all of that is a really, really big piece of it, the transfer of liability for a small business, because one of those claims and it can really, really hurt your business. So it's stuff to, make sure you're paying attention to and seeking out a good partner for those types of things.
Yeah, I think it's something to the effect of about $160,000 is the average claim, currently on one of those type of lawsuits.
Talking about an extra $5 for benefits, but imagine if you're doing all of that and then you have a claim like this, so it's every piece of it is so important for a business.
I know, I thought about that. I was like, I'm not trying to sell anything. Why did I say 5?
No.
It is 5. It's 5.
I do want to say a little bit with risk. So we've talked about, hey, attracting
Attracting and
a
retaining.
talent and retaining that top talent. But we talked about on our call a little bit, and I thought it was really interesting. When you know when it's the right time to pull the plug and let a candidate go
A candidate or an
or an
employee?
employee.
So on the candidate, don't let candidates that are still good candidates go entirely until that person that you hired, their butt's in the seat. I can't tell you the number of times that, somebody's taken a job, you let all the candidates go, and then the person that you hire says, hey, I got another offer for 10 grand, peace out. And then you're stuck going from the start again. So from the candidate perspective, keep them engaged. You can be honest with them. I mean, I would encourage that, but keep them engaged. And on the employee side, it's fascinating. I mean, where you are during your business at different stages can dictate that. So in a startup, use product management as an example. When you're starting up in your greenfield, having a good product manager that can actually understand what the customer is doing, what the product should do, have that type of interaction with the clients and the dev team to pull something together from a greenfield is one type of product manager. The type that can take a product that's existing, work with clients to make sure it's meeting their needs and growing, another type. The type that's going to be twilighting an existing product because there's got to be something better out there and manage that, whole different type of person. So realizing as a founder and a business leader that the people that are with you from the beginning, this is a tough reality, but they may not be with you the whole journey. They may not be able to make those transitions. And having those conversations and doing it gracefully and being genuine through those things is huge and will add immense value to your culture. One of our clients let their first developer, who became their CTO, who became their chief architect, where the company was going versus what he was really good at differed. He was their 5th employee. They were at 200 employees. He had over 60 people reporting to him. And we have a speaker at an event a few weeks ago about that journey and transition, and that's tough to do. But the CEO, that was the right decision for his business, and frankly, it was the right decision for the employee because he was miserable. He was doing it because he loved the company, he wanted to be there. But reality is, making the right decisions for your employee for what's best for their career journey as well will add huge amounts to your culture also.
And I know we're getting up against time, so I want to provide at least a couple more minutes for Q&A, 1 or 2 minutes.
There's somebody in the back holding a big sign, telling us we're running out of time. So,
Okay. So, audience questions, please raise your hand.
What kind of engagement should I expect from my PEO? We don't have an HR team, so if I have that engagement with Trinet, what kind of engagement should I expect? Monthly, quarterly?
Yeah, so it's kind of twofold because it's you as the admin, and then also engagement with your employees, which is really important. I'd say more important too. We want to make sure that they feel like they're taken care of. So we're really your HR department. If you don't have one in-house today, then outsourcing that is going to be the best option, cost-wise, service-wise, to make sure your employees are taken care of, to understand all the nuances, the thousands and thousands of employer regulations. So your employees were, checking in with, they can call us 24 hours a day, chat us, email us. So we're making sure that they're really well taken care of. And then from an admin point of view, you guys as the founders and CEOs, we're checking in on you monthly, quarterly. It kind of depends on, the cadence that you set with your HR business partner, which is what we call account managers also, because they're not just account managers, they're all certified in HR. A lot of them come from the carrier worlds where they were involved with benefits for many, many years. So I would say most common is monthly, and then some need a little less check-ins and they're doing it on a quarterly basis.
Any other questions?
one?
Yeah.
I've got a few actually, but start with kind of a pie in the sky one. As companies grow, investors invest more money, there may be pressure to move a company from a certain location to a very different environment. What are some considerations and techniques to be able to retain that talent that you have when you may not be able to afford to pay them more, but you might be able to move them out there? What are some other considerations to be able to keep your talent with you as you move company potentially thousands of miles away?
I mean, stuff is so remote these days that we are seeing more and more. It's less about location and where you live and more about like the culture, what you guys are doing, the job descriptions, and are employees fulfilled? Can you still kind of fulfill that being miles away? So it's pretty common these days. I would say more than ever, it's not something that employees are having issues with. As long as you still are able to hold that culture virtually, then we're seeing a lot of companies be successful at it.
Well, some positions can't be, and so they have to move with the company. So that's really more of a consideration.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So I mean, we've seen clients use everything. Well, first off, genuinely communicating through it. And if it needs to be a transition, having a plan for that, and doing retention bonuses short term for those things through the transition, is valuable. If you want to retain them longer term and they're in agreement with that also, there's equity triggers, there's stay bonuses, there's reload bonuses, and then there's cost of living adjustments for new markets. The goal is to be able to pick from the best options versus having to choose from the worst. So if an investor is putting you in a situation where you're going to have to choose from the worst, I mean, you've got other decisions and triggers and conversations that you have to have. But, your culture can have a huge impact on that as well, involving them through it so they feel like they own part of it also, means a huge amount. So, I mean, tap dancing in a landmine field, but you get through it. Or you end up with a hairline like mine that keeps going back, trying to make decisions.
The online?
Did you have a second part of your question?
I had a couple more, but I guess I'll go into the next one. We're thinking about the idea of growing and scaling very quickly. And making those very fast hires. You may not necessarily understand all the roles you need to do, especially if you haven't hired for those specific roles before. What are some ways that you can reduce the risks around those hires and making sure that you have the right people that can run with you and figure things out along the way?
That's you, Josh, for sure.
No, I think you should. I'm kidding. I will take making companies that make good decisions and do a little bit more work on the front side, even if it takes them just a little bit longer, versus making bad decisions to get a hiring quickly that has the right skill set. David Cummings is the king of doing that and making sure they make really, really good decisions. And he's been part of a huge number of high growth companies, and he is always jerking the reins back, trying to help people make great decisions. But there's landmines that companies get stuck with. An example being that, they've got to hire, I'll go back to product management. Good product managers are hard to find, and good product managers, it's hard to understand which one you need depending on the stage of your business. So if you don't have somebody internally that can qualify that, either working with a good recruiter who's specialized or has a lot of experience in product management, or just calling somebody who's in product management that preferably in network, getting their advice and doing everything you can to learn from them and potentially even engage them. If we're recruiting on something for a client that we can identify it, but either we internally or our client doesn't have the knowledge to make sure they're making a great hire from a hard skill perspective, our recruiters get on the phone and we find someone that can engage for that, and either we'll pay them a couple $100 for an hour of their time to interview them, or our client pays to do that. But we do everything we can to make sure they've got as much information as possible to make a timely but really good decision. And the immortal words of my grandpa, don't F it up.
And I think there's,
Yeah.
yep,
Yeah, I had a question. So on the topic of, scaling fast, growing fast. On one side, the decision of hiring the right person is important, but in this market right now, at least based on the people I'm talking to and what I'm seeing, hiring managers are overwhelmed with resumes. And, there's a huge disparity in the market right now, and candidates have a fatigue of applying and not hearing back from companies on whatever happens to their application, or finding a system rejecting them, not really doing thorough due diligence. So my question is, what kind of conversations, thought leadership is taking place today? This is a question for you, Josh, since you're in this space. What kind of thought leadership is being put in place to create more organic networking opportunities to connect hiring managers with qualified candidates in the market so that we don't have a system rejecting good candidates? Going back to customer service, good experience, I think the innovation is finding those organic human connections instead of a system just, doing a quick rundown of some keyword matches.
Mhm.
So I'm curious, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, until the AI overlords take over, I think there's two sides to that question. I'm gonna hit the candidate side of it first. Your resume's got to be scrubbed. Your resume's got to have the things in it for the AI things to rule in versus out. An easy tool to use is Resume Worded, resumeworded.com. Not a plug for them. Just use that for your resume and your LinkedIn profile. That'll help you zero in on that. Get your score to 80. If you can get your score to about 80 on that, you're in good shape. You don't have to pay to try and get to 100. They've got a premium version of it. So plug for Resume Worded. Sorry, it's not a plug for the paid version. On the company side, I go back to matching the business needs to the job descriptions. One, if your job description is too vague, you're going to attract a much wider swatch of candidates. Ask a couple of questions in it as well. So if you've got the job description, ask a couple of questions. Hey, tell us about a time you developed out this type of front end, or tell us about your experience with this. Hey, throw us a code sample, or put a little code challenge in there, or something that people that you want to attract would find compelling to do. That's not going to take them more than 10 minutes. You'll find that you zero into people that are not only qualified, but that will lean in a lot faster doing that. If you are overwhelmed and time is important, honestly, use a recruiter, or figure out ways to leverage external resources so that you get your time back through that process. Once again, there's an opportunity cost to your time, and we deal with, just as an example, sales leaders all the time that don't like recruiters until you ask them how much time they spend on a weekly basis recruiting, and then you ask them, what would having that time back to focus on your team, your company, your clients, your family mean? What's the dollar value with that? Shockingly, they sign our agreements and want to work with us. But it's, there's a balance. So for the candidates, use the technology to give yourself the best advantage out there. And look for the opportunities that aren't out there where everyone's looking. So if you're a product manager, you'll find other product managers to network with. Find the types of companies where you would be really valuable to them, and send a note to their CTO or their CEO and say, hey, I'm guessing you're really passionate about your product growing well. I'm really passionate about that as well. Love to have a conversation with you. It's not actively or not an active job, but most people will engage on things that are important to them. And then on the company side, use things that help zero in and qualify people out so they can self-qualify out. And if you're using a tool like Indeed or ZipRecruiter, those things are great, but you're going to get a deluge, of resumes. They literally go out there and they find anybody that can spell product, as an example, or anybody that can spell Java, and they apply, and you've got to wade through them, and it's really difficult. But from a cost perspective, if money is the most important resource, they're great resources to use.
Any online?
No.
No.
I got a question.
Ben has the last one.
So can you kind of talk a little bit of level funded and self-funded or fully funded? And in the startup community, the small community, what are the pitfalls and what should they avoid?
Yes, so just a quick little rundown. So You've got fully insured. And if you're not into these, I'll give you like the layman's terms, which I like to use with stuff. But fully insured just means they don't look at your health. They're looking at, zip codes, genders, date of births. Level funded is going to be underwritten, right? So long story short, when I go to market for any client, we're going to look at level funded and fully insured. So if you have like an unhealthy group to some degree, you might be kind of stuck getting the fully insured, which isn't like the worst thing in the world. But, and I've came across a lot of times where someone's own fully insured, they don't really understand level funded. It's like life insurance. If you go to buy it and you're a little bit healthier, you can get a little bit cheaper rate. That's pretty much all it is to it. So really, if you have a broker and I think they should be definitely showing you level funded, fully insured. Self-funded is a completely kind of different animal. I'll just leave that there. For most groups, self-funded, I don't think is a good idea typically.
No, so self-funded is when, I guess you can probably say that. You go ahead.
Well, yeah, I want to hear your version. Sorry.
So when the employer actually has to pay the claims.
Yes.
So, normal health insurance that you get from Trey or from Trinet or any other health insurance broker, you're paying a premium and you don't have to pay the claims. With self-insured, you're paying a much smaller premium, but any claims that come up, you have to pay the entire claim. So if one of your employees has a $200,000 medical claim, you as a company have to pay that out of pocket. So if you have, a healthier group as you have 100 employees, 200 employees, some people want to take that risk because what you're paying so low in premium versus what you would pay for a fully insured plan is a huge cost savings, but you're taking a massive risk because if somebody has $500,000, $1 million claim, any huge stuff come up, then you are paying that out of pocket and you as the employer are responsible.
Yeah, and we have someone going through that. They're on self-funded and the premiums are fluctuating and they've had some big claims. So he's like, get me off of this self-funded, to the point where I was trying to talk to him about level funded, but because it had funded in it, he was like, I want fully insured. And I was like, okay, I don't want to talk you into the cheaper way to do this, but I'm just trying to be honest, like you should totally look at level funded. So just the thing to know is like, if you're a business owner shopping health insurance, just make sure you're shown fully insured and level funded. If a group is unhealthy to some degree, like level funded may not be an option, but it's worth looking at. We could be talking half the cost of the insurance. So it's not like $5 or $10. But yeah, I'm always happier if you have a broker, they can educate you more. But again, it's really just having your group evaluated. I have an orthodontic office I'm helping right now. They're in like a huge dental association. It's like, I kind of thought, okay, I don't know that I can help them, but let's go check the market. Because it's like you're in this association, surely you're getting like a better deal. I think they're employee only, with that Blue Cross Blue Shield plan, their employees are paying, it's like $900 a month as a total premium. I just went to market, didn't do anything special, but we went with the level funded plan. They're looking at like literally, not making this up, like half the premium for the same plan, pretty much same plan design. And then also they're getting those admin credits. So, and I'm like, hey, I didn't do anything special, just to be honest. So again, I think it's just finding someone that's willing to go the extra mile. Because I've had many a times where, I hate to say this, I could probably go around with fully insured and we'll just sign up. So I think it's about finding someone that is going to take the time, not just like, oh, they'll say, yeah, let's just throw that out there. So if you're on fully insured, or if you're not sure that you are, just ask your broker, is this fully insured? Do I have the opportunity? Because with level funded, I'm trying to hurry, but level funded also, if you have a good claims year, can kick you back money the next year. Where fully insured, even if you have a good claims year, it doesn't pay you back. So there's a lot of money you will be leaving on the table as an employer if you don't look at things like level funded, like a pretty good chunk of money, potentially.
That was a great explanation. I also heard the pitfall is if you're small and you've got somebody like me that had twins and they spent 8 weeks in NICU, that employer probably had a heart attack. But no, I think you did a great job explaining it. And so I'll wrap us up here. What I heard from all of you tonight is really, there's a lot of different ways to do a lot of different things. One size does not fit all for all these companies. And that's really my biggest takeaway. Be authentic, be genuine. Make sure that, what you're saying on your job descriptions match what you're looking for. And, your job may become a little bit easier. The other thing I'd leave here is utilize this panel and everybody at TiE, right? There's a ton of resources within the TiE community that all of you can come to at any given time. We're more than happy to answer questions. So, thank you, Josh, Trey, and Elyse, and,
Thanks, everybody.